Welcome back to The Line. The tale of Susana's secret settlements involves lawsuits filed last year against former chief of New Mexico State Police, that's Pete Caceres. Now they're tied up with former Governor Susana Martinez and the former head of her security detail, and a recorded phone call made to Ms. Martinez's husband, Chuck Franco. And the settlements, first reported by KRQE-TV, involve $1.7 million in state payouts to settle the matters, which speak to a personal relationship between the governor and a former bodyguard. That would be Ruben Maines. He denies that relationship, by the way. So now State Auditor Brian Colon plans to investigate the settlements. And Eric, this sounds like the plot of a TV drama, just a way of sensationalizing something that's sort of insider baseball stuff that just sort of happens, or is this something that really needs to be cracked open and see what's going on here?
I think it's a great reality show in the making. I think, you've got a villain, you've got
right.
the part that strikes me about this is this governor and other sort of high-level Republicans love the rule of law and love to sort of tout how important it is people need to follow the law. She made her career as a prosecutor who really was nitpicking whether people were following the law. This has so many elements where, questionable, to be generous, questionable if not illegal activities, and not to mention just taking care of taxpayer dollars. Like the idea that you're just sort of either looking the other way, if you, again, to give her the benefit of the doubt, handing out these pretty large, these are big settlements, right, to people under questionable circumstances and then sealing them and not releasing the information. Right. So whether it's transparency, whether it's following basic ethical standards, or frankly protecting taxpayers, all of which are tenets of when she was in office, she loved to go after Democrats and other people for, like, if you remember when she ran, the centerpiece of her campaign against Richardson's, the legacy, and against Diane Danish's was how unethical and how much he sort of played by his own set of rules.
That's right.
So for this to sort of be an example of how sort of behind the scenes, this law and order, law and order, new sheriff in town is essentially, I'm gonna sort of have my own set of rules. Including with personnel. I mean, we haven't even talked about that piece of this. Like, it's just unethical to sort of ask employees, especially public, law enforcement, to do some of the things she was, even if there was no an inappropriate relation going on. Like, you don't ask members of law enforcement to put up blinds for you. Come on.
Glad you mentioned that. This kind of hanging blinds. Crystal, interestingly, Eric mentioned ticked off a good list there of some of the things that could be looked at here. One of them, of course, is this crazy 5-year confidentiality agreement. Yeah. Instead of the state mandated 180 days. That's a big difference.
Yeah, and I think,
what are they trying to hide here with 5 years of confidentiality? It's amazing.
I don't know, and I'm glad to see that, the state auditor and also, the current deputy secretary of the general services, or who's also overseeing the risk management, they're taking a critical look so that way this doesn't happen again. But when I watched the story, number one, I did think the exact same thing. Am I watching Real World New Mexico, right? Circa MTV. Nice. And I also, I had to also commend Larry Barker for doing such an in-depth job and also very carefully keeping that fair and balanced journalism, because, the former state police chief, he's like, I didn't sign up for this, and this has been, horrific for my reputation. If anything, the biggest lesson to be learned from this whole drama is to remind politicians, both currently elected and also those that are thinking about running for office, as long as you have good ethics, good accountability, and good moral behavior. And not everybody is a perfect person to run for office with those three major qualities. But the campaigns, I spoke to a campaign manager, a long time ago, and I said, how do you make sure that your people win? And he goes, I asked them to do their job, and I asked them to make sure that they take care of themselves. None of this would have happened if Susana had just taken the right approach and the right direction.
I hear that. Senator, interestingly, when I look at the $1.7 million paid out, 5 women, 1 man, after allegations of discrimination, harassment, retaliation, there's a lot of things in here that seem like as taxpayer paid entities that needs to be uncovered and understood here. Would you agree with that, or is this more about?
I think it entirely depends on the defendant.
Oh, okay.
If they did not want this public, then no, they should be protected in all ways, like we do anyone who asks to not have their name revealed. I understand that it's taxpayer money, but I couldn't help but there was a big article, or I'd been reading something about Susana, and in the paper was, we're now finalizing all of the investment scandal that went on in Bill Richardson's time as governor, and nobody went to jail. And how many millions of dollars did people get of taxpayer money?
It's very true.
So I kind of think that's Democrats talking about Susanna is kind of calling the pot calling the kettle black. I mean, should anybody have been doing it? No. That they are going to investigate it and look at it? Yes. What disappoints me the most is because we had all this mess with Governor Richardson, why didn't we make changes while Susanna was in office? And part of that lies in the fact that all of the statewide elected officials were Democrats. They were not Republicans except for
Except for the one indicted.
Except
Except for the two that were indicted. They were statewide elected
Right.
Republicans.
Land commissioner. Land commissioner. The thing about it is, but the ones we're talking about, auditors and attorney generals and people like that, that should be taking the lead on this.
Right.
So I guess I just look at it and go, when is going to be the line when we actually do something? And to me, that's the legislature's responsibility.
That's right.
Not
Harry
the
in here
governor,
real quick, sorry.
but I think it's the
Yeah.
legislator's responsibility.
Yeah. You know, it's so murky, HVB. When you read about these things, it's hard to parse out who's on whose side here.
Exactly, yeah.
Because I've got information here that says, you know, Mr. Colonna allegedly has a close relationship with, you know, Pete Cassettis. And so,
Yeah.
that, you know, that's sort of a mess right
in
there,
New
too.
Mexico,
Right,
imagine such a
exactly.
thing.
Right.
And he's
exactly.
investigating?
I was like,
Exactly.
have you met Brian? He knows everybody in town.
Yeah,
That's
but-
He's met
really
everybody,
good.
yeah.
That's
roommates
a
and
little bit
From his
things like that.
campaigning.
Much closer
But
relationship.
I appreciate your point, Crystal, but does that make a difference in how the public perceives this investigation?
It may well make a difference, but this is why we go back to sort of the core ways you manage ethics and compliance in organizations, which is what I do at UNM.
That's right.
You have independent, ways of, with the Ethics Commission, for example, you have rules that are impersonally applied across the board.
That's right.
The thing is, the business community has been talking about this for 25 years. And when I teach this topic to my students, I say the government sector is 10 to 15 years behind where business is, and in New Mexico is probably a quarter century. So the hope would be, responding to Diane's point, that we start to have things in place with the Ethics Commission that are going to deal with these things, because there's nothing more corrosive to trust than to have people think that all that really matters is whether the other side is doing something that you don't like, or it's a way of using a cudgel against them. The reality is that ethics really needs to be a nonpartisan issue across the board, equally true for Bill as it was for Susanna.
Good point there. Appreciate that. Sorry to cut you off.
No,
there,
no, no,
Laura,
that's
but-
okay
yeah.
too. Like, with all due respect, like, I don't think it should be a conversation about D's and Reds at this point. Like, it's generally going back to the ethics thing, because if you think about this, the way that the story and I agree, like, change should happen so you eliminate corruption in government, period. But one of the really interesting things, which made it so dramatic, was the case didn't get closed until the last day. Like, it was very obvious that this was very, like, put out into play. And KRQE is even doing additional research on who is this individual, why did it all happen, why did he move to Arizona, why does he they're really looking into the individual characters, and it's almost like they're developing the story for the characters or the people that are in the whole situation.
Let me go to Eric on characters and having character on your point there. If you were the boss and someone came to you, an employee, and said, you know what, I got a couple $100,000 in gambling debt. Could you give me like 50 grand or something? What would you say? I mean, if I was the boss of that person, I would look at that person and say, you are now a liability to my administration. You're open to all kinds of crazy stuff. You're open to blackmail. When you're 200 grand down in gambling debt, you're not the same person. Should she have just jettisoned this guy right off the bat?
Well, that's why I think for the folks who are into the sort of the more sordid part of this, there clearly was something else going on, personal relationships, I don't know, familiar relationships. But I just want to follow up on a couple of things that everybody said. Look, there's a reason why we have independent inspector generals. Like, yes, we have a partisan attorney general and a partisan auditor. When I was on city council, we got an independent inspector general off the ground. because we had at the time a Democratic mayor who was sort of fast and loose with stuff. And I don't think it should be a partisan issue. We should be able to say, we got to take it out of the hands of either party and make it an independent entity with, by the way, some staff and resources. The way you kill this is not staffing them up. We've tried to get that ethics bill through. I sponsored it when I was in the Senate. We've tried to get an independent ethics commission with real teeth, subpoena power, resources for a generation. It's been tough because of both parties have not been willing to say, we're not going to hand up. It's great that we're going to have it on the, that we're going to have it now in place.
Right.
But it's been pretty circumspect. If you look at what happened from the original bill compared to what kind of scope they have, it's very limited, much better than we had.
That's right.
But it's a step in the right direction. But I agree, we need an independent, nonpartisan entity, maybe some more inspector generals at the state level, separate from the AG, separate from the auditor that can actually do this.
Good stuff, you guys. Great stuff on a Friday night. I really enjoyed it. That's it for this week's panel, but you can always head to Facebook and find our weekly warm-up, a rundown of things we didn't get a chance to dig into on air. You can also catch the latest post on our Facebook Live series. As I headed to Tingley Beach this week with representatives from Albuquerque Open Space to talk about the river and how beautiful it is and the ball ski and all the fun activities for all ages at the city's open spaces.